Hey, I got something that I want to say to you. Here it is. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word. I have no idea what that means. I don't know what that's trying to say. This is where that's from. This is the beginning of the Gospel of John. It says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word. All things were made by means of him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of humankind. He was in the world, and the world was made by means of him. And the Word was made flesh, and dwelt among us, and we saw his glory. I gotta say, I like that. I like reading that. I like the sound of how it is. But it's a little bit like a 90s alternative rock song. I like what you're saying, but I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea what it means. Is that whole thing just like an introductory poem, or is there more to it? Okay, actually, I do know what it means. That's what we're talking about here today on the show, but it's not immediately apparent. I had to learn it, and today we're going to look at it. We're going to break it down piece by piece and see how that mysterious, cryptic text teaches us about the power of truth, the literal power of truth. So, first of all, who or what is this mysterious the Word it keeps talking about? Let's talk about the Word. What is the Word? What do we know about it from this Bible passage? Well, in the beginning was the Word. Also in him was life, and life was the light of humankind. And also the Word was made flesh, dwelt among us, and we saw his glory. This is from the Gospel of John. The context, everything about it makes it clear that he's talking about Jesus Christ. The Word is Jesus. But then why didn't he just say it? Why did he just say in the beginning was Jesus Christ? Why is he called the Word? Swedenborg says this in Heaven and Hell. The Word in this passage is the divine truth that is in the Lord. The Lord is the term Swedenborg uses for Jesus Christ, and from the Lord. So here it is also called the light, which is divine truth. In heaven, it is divine truth that possesses all power. And apart from it, there is no power whatever. No power whatever. So truth is cooler than you think. It's more powerful than you think. If I said to you, yeah, the power of the truth, it doesn't seem like a very great power. It'd be kind of like if someone was like, I found this great new power. It's the power of love. Oh, I thought you were going to say like a real power. But as we showed in the last episode, spiritually speaking, love literally has power. It is as powerful as the nuclear fusion in the middle of the sun, or fission in the middle of the sun, whichever one it is. So does truth. Truth has that same kind of real power on the spiritual level. It seems like when you hear truth, you probably think of just words. And I guess it could have power if someone heard those words and decided to act on them. But in heaven, truth is more like a laser beam. It is actually powerful, and it's where all angels get their power from. This is, again, heaven and hell. All angels are called powers because of divine truth, and are powers to the extent that they are recipients or vessels of it. Through it, they prevail over the hells and over all who oppose them. Don't mess with truth. 1,000 enemies there cannot bear one ray of heavenly light, which is divine truth. Since angels are angels because of their acceptance of divine truth, it follows that all heaven is from this source and no other, since heaven is made up of angels. Okay, so you got divine truth can clear a oncoming demonic horde. It's what makes angels who they are. It is an actual protective power against hell. It is like the ultimate selective membrane, that if you love the human race and you don't have ulterior motives, come on in, come on through. But if you are secretly hiding this desire to do everything that's terrible to everyone and for selfish reasons, you can't stand it. You can't stand the truth. It is so strong, it'll knock you back. It's like a force field that hell can't pass through or even approach. That's why there's safety in heaven. That's why when we live the life of heaven, we have a safety from the negativity and evil that tries to get into us in our lives. Truth is like military grade stuff in the afterlife. But that's not all it does. It has peacetime functions as well. There is another type of fundamental power that divine truth has, and is actually hinted at in the same passage. All right, let's head back to John 1 for the other side of the power of truth. The parts we didn't talk about before are how all things were made by means of him, and without him nothing was made that was made. He was in the world, and the world was made by means of him. A lot of making going on, and this is a characteristic of the divine truth that the Word is from heaven and hell. There is an intrinsic power within divine truth, though. Power of such nature that by means of it, what can it do? What's it capable of? By means of it, heaven, the world, and everything, maybe you've heard of that, in them was created. Everything was created in heaven and in the world through divine truth. And that doesn't seem like it makes sense if you're just thinking of truth as concepts and words. But here's an illustration or a correspondence that can help with that. So if you remember, in the spiritual world, we were going on and on about this in our previous episodes, truth is the same thing as light. So what light does for us here on the physical plane, truth does in the spiritual world. And actually, in the spiritual world, you can see the truth as light. You might just think, well, light is just a thing like you can like light things so they look nice. It's how you see, but it doesn't really have power in it. Plants eat light. Plants eat light. Light is the food for plants as they grow. I think they're just like chomping up light. That is what powers plants. Photosynthesis is the process of plants absorbing light and converting it to energy, taking the energy in that light. And the plants are what makes it so that animals and humans can exist because they eat the plants and eat each other and all that. So basically everything biological runs on the power of light. If you think about like a man cheetah like running across the savannah, it's super fast and powerful, that's light energy. That is light energy. Went through a few steps on the food chain, but that's the power of light. So physically, light is a force that God uses to create and maintain physical life forms. And actually, this originates in divine light or divine truth. We talked about in 2 videos. One, God used a specific design to create heaven, and the pattern of God has been built into the universe, that divine light or divine truth formed the heavenly planes and then flowed out and became denser to create the physical universe. That the physical universe is somehow made out of divine light. So you have the divine truth which flows out of God, manifesting in the spiritual world as spiritual light. So that spiritual light creates the structure of heaven and everything that's in it. The reason that there are different parts to it, all the different pieces in there. Truth flows through heaven in the form of spiritual light and becomes denser and denser as it moves outward, eventually becoming dense enough that it becomes physical. And that's where the physical world comes from. Swedenborg says in Heaven and Hell, this enables us to determine how to understand the statement that all things were made by means of the Word, and that without him nothing was made that was made, and further that the world was made by means of him, namely that this was accomplished by means of divine truth from the Lord. Truth is how things get done in reality. And not if that wasn't enough for you, if you're sitting here at home looking at your phone saying, created all the heavens and the earth, and that's not that impressive. It created your mind too. That very thing you're saying, this is not that cool with, you can thank divine truth for the functioning of that. Truth or information is the indispensable, crucial light that forms a mind. It makes it possible for us to do anything intentionally with our brains and bodies. You've got to have the information in truth to do that. You think about a baby, and he's going to sit here and rip on babies, but they've got some issues. They just kind of moving and reacting to stimuli, but a baby can't do anything deliberate until it starts to have thoughts or concepts in there. Over the years, babies learn stuff, but things that they used to have to concentrate on, like walking and talking, I have to understand how to move. It becomes automatic, but it's still because they initially learned how, understood what was going on. And as grown-ups, we can't do anything without understanding how to do it. We have to gather the information and know how to do it, either from being taught or just learning through experience. Think about how bad you are at something the first time that you try it, especially a physical action. I have 2 dogs, and when we first got our second dog, trying to walk them both at the same time and like pick up their poop, and like I was amazingly bad at my brain did not know how do you hold both these leashes and then reach to. It was hilarious. Like you'd think I could do it, but I didn't have the muscle memory. I couldn't do it. It's still a bit comical to see me try, but not nearly as bad as it was. The will we have gives us the impetus. I want to go walk my dogs, but it's the thoughts, the information, the experience or the data that allows your brain to get the right pattern, fire the right neurons, get yourselves to take action, gather the tools, make it happen. You've got to have that truth. Back to heaven and hell. All the elements of our will are related to what is good, and all the elements of our discernment are related to what is true. On this basis, then, we set our whole body in motion, and 1,000 things there rush to do our bidding of their own accord. If you just going to reach out and like slap something off the table, do something stupid, there's trillions of cells and molecules and everything else that went into that. There's more coordination in that action than among all the countries on Earth that have ever worked together, and people. There's so much coordinated action going in there. That's because of the power of truth. It's because good working with truth can do these amazing things. There's actually another passage in the Bible that relates to truth creating a human mind. You may have heard of the very beginning, Genesis 1:1-3, when God began to create the heavens and the earth. The earth was complete chaos, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. The creation story starts with light, because it is this divine parable or correspondence about not the creation of the physical world, not even the creation of a human being, but the creation within us of a spiritual human mind. This is about when we go from the complete chaos of an egocentric, narcissistic, asleep lifestyle to starting to understand that there's other people and they matter, and that there's God who is transcendent, goodness and truth. You start to wake up. You have to have truth come in and start that. It has to start with truth before anything else in us can grow and develop. So God says, let there be light, because the light is what's going to get things done. We can only actually literally think or have understanding because the spiritual part of us in the spiritual world has this divine light, even though it's filtered down, coming into it. That is thought itself. If you want to know more about the creation story and what you can unpack from that, we did a whole show about that. Check it out. Okay. So we're learning about the word and divine truth. I think I get what it is, and it's cool. How did it get here? Where does it come from? So if we go back to where it all started, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word. Does that mean, is there like two gods? Is the Word and God? Or is it one God? I would hope it's one God. It seems a little weird to have it be anything else. Swedenborg can help us understand this. Think of God in that the word God in that as divine love, and the Word as we've been saying, divine truth. So God is divine love itself. Each of us are some kind of love. Swedenborg says over and over that love is our life. And it's not like, of course, love is who we are. What you love, the kind of love that's in you is fundamentally who you are. God is divine love, which is love for everyone all the time. That's the core, the beating heart of God. Nothing else exists anywhere until God sends power outward to create stuff. Divine truth is the plan for doing that. It is like the DNA that energy then goes into, the design, the structure of things as they get created. So divine goodness then is the useful energy, the results, like the good that comes out of it, that smile on the face of a child after all these steps of creation to allow there to be such a thing as a child. The goodness is the happiness in them. Really, the divine truth and the goodness, so the plan and then the good actions that come from it, or the design and then the activity, are totally together. Like they come out of God completely united, just like you have the sunlight is both warm and bright at the same time. You can kind of receive them differently based on whoever's taking it in, but ultimately they come out of God united. Swedenborg writes that since the Lord as the Son is divine love, and divine love is the essential divine good, the divine that emanates from him, his divine nature in heaven, so what comes out of him around into creation, is called divine truth for the sake of clarity, even though it is divine good united to divine truth. So it seems like you could talk about it as a distinct thing, but it's really just one thing. This divine truth is what is called the holy that emanates from him. So the creative aura that is going out from God can be, for short, called divine truth. Knowing that, let's go back to that John 1:1 sentence. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word. We can understand that as in the beginning of creation was divine truth, and divine truth was with divine love, and divine love manifested as divine truth. Meaning, everything that God has put out to create the physical layer of existence, the spiritual layer of existence, carries God's divine love in it. Love is the source. You can't see any aspect of how things are that isn't ultimately an expression of that love or meant to express that love. So let's get back to Jesus. Jesus Christ was that powerful force of divine truth. That Jesus is that divine truth manifesting all the way down onto the physical plane. That's why in John he's called the Word. So that was God saying, hey, I'm going to come right down here with you. Not in the divine love, because that's too powerful, it burns everything up, but the divine truth is how I get into creation. And I can put my divine truth right in front of you so you can see me through it right there. You can give me a hug. That manifestation flowed out of divine love because the purpose was all about love. This is why Jesus is always talking about love and the importance of it. Divine truth is the person of Jesus. Divine love is the soul of Jesus. The divine truth creates and recreates, always working to put things back into order to reconnect us with divine love, which is the source of all life and happiness. That's why Jesus came down, and what was he doing his whole life? He's teaching and healing, trying to show people the way to live that's in the order that leads us back to divine love, which is all happiness. That is why Jesus came. So what I'm hoping that you get from this whole episode is the next time that you are at a party and somebody says to you, hey man, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word. You can be like, dude, I know exactly what you mean.